About a guy. There's a guy that we're going to talk about tonight, and he became that guy. You know that guy that thinks he can do everything better than others? You know that guy who likes to run down whoever's in charge and undermine them and talk about how they could do a better job? Y'all ever been around that guy? That guy that ain't never satisfied with nothing, but yet he could do it better than anybody has ever done it before? Y'all know that guy? Don't be that guy. Do not be that guy. Let me tell you about one of those guys. He's found in the book of Numbers, chapter 16, and all throughout Numbers 16. We're going to read about this guy. Now, there's three individuals in particular, but we're going to focus on a man named Korah. I didn't say Torah, I said Korah with a K. Special K if you really want to know it. This man was special. Korah, son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and certain Reubenites, Dathan and Abiram. So these three guys, sons of Eliab and On, son of Peleth, they became insolent. Korah, Abiram, and Dathan, these three guys became insolent, which means that they were not happy with the leadership. This took place after God had delivered the Israelites out of Egypt. They were freed. The Exodus had just taken place. They were over there in the wilderness, and Moses and Aaron are leading the people, and then these guys, they show up and they become that guy. So it says they became insolent in verse 2, and they rose up against Moses. With them were 250 Israelite men, well-known community leaders who had been appointed members of the council. They came as a group to oppose Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why then do you set yourselves above the Lord's assembly?" So that's the charge. That's what they're accusing Moses and Aaron of, setting themselves above all of the other people. Did Moses say he wanted the job? How many days did Moses spend in the wilderness before he answered the call to his job? Or years? Yeah, do the math. Was it 40 years times 365? That's how many days? So that's what, 1,600 something? It's a lot of days. He spent not wanting to be that guy. So how is he setting himself up above all these other people? What about Aaron? Aaron wasn't even the one supposed to be in charge. He only got brought into the gig because his brother stuttered. Moses was so self-conscious about the way he talked, he ran. How could he possibly, being that humble, think that he is above everybody? Who do you think is the one that called Moses and Aaron to be God's leaders for God's people? Who called them to do that? God did, right? So who do they really have beef with? It's really God, ain't it? God has anointed certain people to be in charge of certain things. Not just pastors in a church, but through all kinds of stuff. I mean, some of you have been anointed to be parents. Some of you have been anointed to be grandparents. And it's a role that nobody else can do but you. But man, when the folks start griping about it, what happens to those people that rise up and start undermining and bad-mouthing? There was a movie called Bruce Almighty. Had Jim Carrey in it. And this guy, he had the mind that he could do a better job than God at being God. So God let him do it. He found out right quick, like, this is not an easy job. Careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. My God has a sense of humor, and my God also don't like to joke about things, especially when people are questioning his decision. God decided that this man Moses was going to be the leader. And his brother and his sister Miriam were going to be his helpmates. That's how it was going to be. That's what God decided. This man right here was like, y'all know how this starts, right? Korah they said that 250 council leaders, all right? Y'all know that's about like winning a spot on a board of education, right? It's really involved. So they got on there, and that made them all fancy because they were on this council. And they started listening to Korah. It's like, we are all holy. We all holy. Isn't that what he said? He said this whole place is holy. The whole community is holy. Every one of these people are holy. Why are you set up as the leader? Why can't all of us are just as holy as you are? We're just as important, aren't we? And see, that is the rub. People, understand something. God values you whether you realize your importance or not. Right? So often we get jealous of others or we undermine others because we don't feel like we're as important as they are. You think that God picked somebody to be more valuable than you? You think God creates people to be more important than you are? Somebody might have a different job, you might consider it a bigger job, just in the scope of it. But folks, let me tell you something. Ain't nobody's life more important than somebody else's to God. He created all of us in His image. We are all to be like Him and stop looking at each other. These guys didn't do that. Instead, they looked at Moses, they looked at Aaron, and I believe that their jealousy and their own insecurities is what got their mouth to running. And they started undermining and then bad-mouthing and then eventually leading a revolt against the men that God had set up to lead them. Okay? Now, I'm going to skip down. In verse 8, Moses said to Korah, he said, now listen, you Levites. So they were all cousins. Isn't it enough for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the rest of the Israelite community and brought you near Himself to do the work at the Lord's tabernacle and to stand before the community and minister to them? This man has an important job. He has been set aside. He is doing the work of God at the tabernacle. That tent of meeting that they had out in the wilderness, they had jobs. They were Levites. They were part of the tribe that was set aside, that was to be the priests and take care of stuff. But that still wasn't good enough. They wanted the priesthood. They wanted to be the top. Y'all, this is just like those guys that were mad when Jesus came. We don't like the leadership that you've given us. We would like something different. We don't like this leadership. We would like something different. We call it voting. They just revolted. Well, so Moses summoned Dathan and Abiram. That's in verse 12. But they said, we will not come. Okay. You're not going to come? They said, isn't it enough that you brought us out of a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the desert? And now you also want to lord it over us? And you hadn't brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey or given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards? Will you gouge the eyes out of these men? No, we're not going to come. So they just point blank told Moses, we're not listening to you anymore. You brought us out of a land, I'm sorry, but if you're in slavery, that land is not flowing with no milk and honey. There ain't nothing flowing but sweat. That's it. There ain't no milk and honey even being served. So this man is what we would call an Old Testament crackhead. He has just invented something that ain't even there. I'm saying it. That don't make no sense. He's accusing Moses of bringing them out of a land that was great and into a land that's awful. Like Moses was the only one with a GPS unit. Who led them out? Through the sea on the dry ground to a place that he said he wanted them to be, and now this guy is like, no, we are not going to do it. So in verse 15, Moses became very angry. And he said to the Lord, don't accept no offerings from them. I ain't took no anything. I ain't took a donkey, nothing. I have not wronged any of them. And in verse 16, he says to Korah, you and all your followers, this is what I want you to do. This is what you are to do. You're going to appear before the Lord tomorrow. You and the rest of your guys and Aaron. And this is what I want you to do. All right? And I'm going to paraphrase this. I want you to take a stick, a censer. All right? And in the end of that stick, it's like a staff. I want you to put some burning incense. And 250 of y'all are going to stand up there with Aaron, and God's going to decide which one of y'all are legit. He says, this is how it's going to go down. If any of you die from natural causes or anything like that, then surely Aaron was false. But if Aaron ain't false, what's going to happen? The earth's going to swallow you up. Well, Moses and Aaron fell face down, and they cried out, have mercy, God. O God, gods of the spirits of mankind, will you be angry with this entire assembly when it's just one guy's fault? Then the Lord said, tell the whole assembly, get away from them three guys. Let me tell you this. I was talking about this morning with Elizabeth on the way home. And, Elizabeth's in the 5th grade. She probably hadn't seen a whole lot of the wrath of God or heard about a lot of it, right? This is what happened to them guys. Look with me on down into verse 30, 31. Verse 28. Moses said, this is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things, and that it was not my idea. These men die a natural death and experience only what happens to men, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord brings about something totally new and the earth opens up and swallows them and everything that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the grave, that's Sheol, that's hell waiting on them. They go down into that. Okay. Then they will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt. Verse 31 says, as soon as he finished saying all this, the ground under them split apart. And the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them, with their households and all Korah's men and all their possessions. They went down alive into the grave with everything they owned. The earth closed over them, and they perished and were gone from the community. At their cries, all the Israelites around them fled, shouting, the earth is going to swallow us too. See, when your sin comes face to face with you, and be sure your sin will find you out, every single one of us are going to have to answer or give a reckoning for the things that we do. We're going to have to answer for it. It's called a responsibility. And these guys were wanting to just take and never sacrifice or serve or give or anything. They just wanted to be just spoiled. God, every page of this book, He ain't spoiled nobody. He keeps us honest. He keeps us centered and focused on what we need to be doing. Let me tell you something. I believe this with my whole heart. If people would start seeing the consequences of their sin, they would probably stop sinning so much. I told that girl this morning, about 100, 150 years ago, they used to hang people and leave them up. And everybody that saw it, their first question was, what did they do? And when they found out what they did, they made sure that they didn't do that because that's what was waiting on them. And it made people not do it because people were held accountable. They were responsible. And I told her, I said, you know what they used to do to kids that backtalked their parents in the Old Testament? They would take them to the town square, call everybody out. Y'all come here, look at this. Come here, look at this. You see this kid right here? This kid was talking back and disrespecting their mother and father. That's the first commandment with a promise, and that promise is coming true today. And they would pick up rocks and throw them at that kid until they killed it. It's called stoning. And the other kids that were watching this were like, I ain't saying nothing to my mama and daddy. It was accountability. And teaching young kids to be responsible for their own actions. What you do has consequences. I think these three guys, somewhere along the line, they did get spoiled. They were part of the Levite clan. And the Levites were set aside to be the priests, and the other 11 tribes had to help take care of them. They had to give an offering, 1/10 of their stuff. That sound familiar? And they would tithe so that that tribe could take care of the church, of the tabernacle. That's where the whole thing got started at, of how we do church. All right? The tithe system and the paying of the preachers and all of that stuff. And they got spoiled and they got to expect it. And they wanted to be taken care of. And they wanted to have Moses' job. Because I know what all of y'all think. I know we make this job look glamorous. All right? I know that all of y'all would love to be up here where I am right now. If God has called you, then that's the place to be. But if He's not, you're probably going to go down kind of like these guys. Could you imagine somebody coming into a church? Let's take our church. And let's say they join the church or become a member of the church and start coming to church. And then they start having ideas and they start planting other ideas like, hey, I don't want to say nothing, but I think Brother Jason's kind of stupid. I don't know if we should listen to him. We might could do better. And then other folks like, I've been thinking we could do better for a long time. I might go along with that. All of a sudden, it's just a whole thing. And then by the time business meeting rolls around, that joker stands up and makes a motion that we just release that preacher and get a new one. And pretty soon, the whole church is like, well, I guess so. Everybody's excited about this guy. He seems to be on fire for the Lord. Let's follow that. And that happens a lot. A whole lot. I'm going to tell you tonight, if you're on the wrong side of God, God's not going to just let it go. I think about everything that's happening right now with the Ukrainians and all of that stuff. And there's been so many people speculating about, does this have anything to do with prophecy? Could it? And it could. It's okay, baby. Did you tell her roll tide? the scriptures do line up with the events that are taking place. It's plausible that the birth pains have begun and the rumors of wars. Y'all, the plague, there ain't been a bigger plague than COVID, has it? And all of these things that Jesus mentioned in Matthew 24 have lined up. And I'm like, why is there still, with all of this stuff, and Jesus could come back at any time, why is there still so much animosity in churches? You would think that right now churches would just be loving on one another and getting ready for the last shindig to happen. Because y'all, I have a feeling that homecoming ain't going to be in August. The first Sunday in August. What if it happens before then? Our church loves each other. It is obvious by the way that you all serve and give, and we made it, through COVID and being shut down. This past weekend, we had a work weekend, a work day, put a new window up and painted and fixed a bunch of stuff around here, just did chores. And folks just come out and just did stuff, and it's just that sacrificial service and everybody just putting in their part and letting God do the leading. My heart's been heavy in the past, the way some of my preacher friends have been treated. And some of it has to do with kind of like what's going on in this scripture right here. And I'm not speaking about this from because of me. Let me tell y'all this. For the rest of your life, if you ever bring words against a man of God, you better make sure that it's right. There is no room for error when you start accusing God's anointed of being wrong. Because God picks and chooses his men, and he calls them and sets them aside for a purpose. And any hindrance to that purpose, God takes it personally. He did with this guy. Moses did not have to fight. Moses did not have to defend himself. Moses was plenty mad. But Moses did not swallow up this man and his family and all his possessions and his house. God did that. Because God ain't going to put up with it. And God will fight for us. And God will defend us. And God will do what needs to be done sometimes. Our God is a God of justice. And we are all morons if we think that we're going to get anything by God. So let's make our feelings known to God. If we have a concern about anything, this is the lesson, okay? This is the point. If we have a concern about anything in our home, our church, work, wherever, take that to God and always be sure that you remember you are accountable for what you do. You have to answer for what you do, for what you say, and for what you think. You are even responsible for what you dream, okay? If you had a bad dream and you did something you weren't supposed to do in that dream and that happened in your noggin, you get up and you apologize, all right? Because it's in your head. For some reason, it came out in your dream, so that's your responsibility to say, I'm sorry. Is that right? Any of y'all ever had a dream and been like, I'm glad that was a dream. I don't have to repent of that. Nobody? I mean, I would be kind of like, hey, that's kind of cool. Don't count that one against me. I was telling Luke and Bubba this in class. Our brains can be rewired. Did you know that? You can rewire your brain. your brain will get to popping off these little electrical synapses, and you can develop new habits. Did you know that? Did you know that you old horse or old dog or whatever you are, you can't teach an old horse new trick? That ain't the saying. It's dog. All right, you old dogs, time to learn a new trick. Your brain, the way it works, it will rewire itself. And what it does is it changes and rewires itself to suit the information that you're feeding it. Okay? So if you are feeding your brain information about, let's say that you complain or you give out excuses or gossip or negativity, something that is not productive. And if that is what you're normally thinking about, then your brain is going to wire itself up to be negative. And it's going to continue to be negative from then on because you have trained it and wired it to be negative. You will be negative about things, about people, and you will constantly complain till you become a complainer or a gossiper or just a negative person, right? See, your brain rewires itself so that it's easier to function because your brain is steadily learning. Like if that's what you're about, then we're going to not even access those files concerning happiness and jolly. We're going to focus on this negativity that you seem to be focused on. And your brain ain't even going to pop off on that happy, fun, joy stuff. It's going to be negative. Now, if you constantly are searching for abundance, love, opportunities, something to happen, if you're constantly searching for that, then your brain is going to learn that, and your brain is going to start firing off every time it sees an opportunity or a chance at love or an abundance or something positive happening. Sooner or later, you can rewire your brain to only think positive thoughts. I mean, you still might stub your toe or hit your thumb with a hammer, but for the most part, you have rewired your brain to pop off these synapses concerning happiness and joy. You know, if you think about all the things that you're grateful for, all the things that God's blessed us with and done for us, if you would think about that throughout the day, it'll make it a lot easier to stay in a positive, godly frame of mind. The more you think about is what you're going to worship. Right? It takes practice, but over time, you can take that old gray goo inside your noggin and you can teach it to be more godly. You can actually change your mind. Does your mind need to be changed? We need to be accountable for our actions. We could wind up like old Korah. Don't be that guy. I mean, if somebody calls me up and they say, yeah, Kaylee, she won't be at church because her whole house got swallowed up, I'm going to be like, she did something. Because that don't just happen. Well, what about sinkholes? Was you living right? What about people that a plane dropped on them? That's bad. They must have said something pretty bad. You mean everything happens for a reason? I think so. I don't think God's a God of chaos. Right? Okay. That's all. Thank you. And